Meanwhile, nationally, President Sleeper, our ambient-in-chief, Joe Biden, has some plans out on student loan forgiveness. And our guest right now on 710 KURV is Neetu Arnold, a research fellow at the National Association of Scholars and a contributor with Young Voices, and has such a strong opinion it ended up in Newsweek.
Whoa.
Biden needs to give up on student loan forgiveness. So what did he propose, and why does he need to give up on this endeavor?
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, this is the Biden administration's second attempt at massive loan forgiveness. This time around, he's proposing forgiving loans for several groups of people, which includes borrowers who entered repayment at least 20 years ago, forgiving up to $20,000 in unpaid interest, and for some borrowers who are experiencing hardship, which is an ambiguous term that could mean a lot of different things. This forgiveness plan is supposed to affect 30 million borrowers.
I had my mic on mute. I'm sorry. Wow, is what I said.
I thought you said, and what's your point? So
no, how is he? How does he? What's the justification behind it? What's the mechanism that he's supposed to be using to facilitate this?
Right. So he's trying to use the Higher Education Act to give the Education Secretary more power to simply forgive these loans. There are a lot of legal questions here, whether this will even pass, whether the Education Secretary even has the power to forgive student loans. The Biden administration argues that this time around, it's possible to forgive the loans because it's, quote, a targeted measure. It will really depend on how the courts view this issue. I argue that the Biden administration is wasting its time on loan forgiveness. Yes, it is an election year, and this is a great attempt at wooing younger voters, but it's a very narrow path. If Biden were to get a second term, he still has to go through the Supreme Court. And in 2023, the Supreme Court ruled debt forgiveness as unconstitutional. They were not big fans of this transfer scheme. Now, in the event that a Republican wins the presidential election, then debt forgiveness is probably not going to happen anyway. It will be rescinded. So this is really a waste of our time. And meantime, the Biden administration could be focusing on a more immediate problem, like the fact that so many students and families are struggling to obtain financial assistance to attend college because of so many errors with the FAFSA form.
Joining us on 710 KURV, Neetu Arnold. We're discussing her article at Newsweek that says Biden needs to give up on student loan forgiveness. Davis Rankin, your question. Go ahead.
Mine tends to be a little more technical. I was talking with a lawyer about this, saying, how can the president forgive a private loan? In other words, when I went to school, my dad borrowed it from some bank in Houston, which would be a private transaction, whatever the favorable terms, as I understand it. And what I was told was, no, this is money that the federal government has loaned to students. Thus, the executive, the top dog, can forgive that. One of the parties can forgive the loan. Is that the way you understand it? That has nothing to do with the rightness or wrongness of it.
This doesn't have to do with private loans, and there are some people out there who do think that the Education Secretary does have that power. This is really an untested use of executive authority, so it is going to bring on lawsuits, and it's one of those issues where it really just depends on how you view this issue. I think there is a moral question here because this is not simply just it's not creating incentives for universities to lower their prices. It's simply a transfer scheme. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the coming months.
Which Newsweek was your article in? Was your piece in?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Which issue? What's the date of the issue that your piece was in?
I believe it was.
It's not a fair
I know
question.
it was in the past week or so.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
a recent publication.
He's just jealous he doesn't have any opinion articles in Newsweek himself.
No,
so
I was thinking, how much did no? What I wanted to ask you was how much did they pay you? But I knew Zach wouldn't let me ask the question, so don't hear that
No.
question. Is this
Davis wants to know, how did you get published? That's what he wants.
Yeah, really.
he wants to get published too. Go ahead.
I totally agree with you that this just seems wrong. What I have read from people who is that most of the people who will get loan forgiveness are people who essentially don't need it. They can afford pay back. As onerous as it is, they can afford it. This goes to middle and upper income type folks, and not folks who are getting themselves up out of poverty or something. I don't know what the facts are, but that this is really a gift. This is really a gift to educated, more well-to-do people. What do you think about that?
Right. And actually, there's an interesting estimate out there for the category of people who entered repayment at least 20 years ago. The average household income for that group is above $300,000. So it really is a wealth transfer. It's people who don't have college degrees or people who paid off their loans or never took out any loans. They are paying for somebody else. And we don't see this in many other kinds of industries. We don't see this with mortgages. We don't see this with credit cards. So that same concept should apply to student loans.
Joining us on 710 KURV, Neetu Arnold, research fellow at the National Association of Scholars, and her writings have appeared in Newsweek, Wall Street Journal, and Real Clear Policy. We're talking about her article at Newsweek recently about Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. And aside from, and this is going to be crass, so I apologize in advance.
But that's us. We're crass.
But aside from just paying your damn bills, there aren't many options for people out there for student loan forgiveness, are there?
No, I mean, this really is about taking responsibility and repaying those loans. But I think there's another issue here. The government simply hands out loans without checking if the person is capable of repaying those loans or whether they're entering programs so where after graduation those borrowers would be capable of repaying those loans. And so what I suggest is that if we're going to keep the federal student aid system, the federal student loan system, we should really be attaching conditions. Just like with any other kind of loan, we check if people can they are reliable enough to repay those loans. That's why we check for credit scores. When it comes to student loans, we should check if the person is capable of finishing a college degree. So we would look at their standardized test scores or their GPAs. And we would also look at the kind of programs that they're entering. If a student is entering psychology, that field is saturated. The return on investment doesn't look very good there. The government shouldn't be telling the student that it's okay to go and study that program when it's not profitable. I think we could make those kinds of simple changes so that the system actually is more efficient.
You're absolutely right. That's a brilliant takedown. That is brilliant. I fully agree with that. I don't like using the P word in this situation, that it's predatory, but sometimes it feels borderline predatory where you're being told by all these people that supposedly know better than you, teachers and counselors and all sorts of people telling you, hey, you're going to be betting on yourself towards your future, right? Like you get the 4-year degree, you go get a job, and you'll be paying that thing off in no time. Don't worry about it. You know, that happens so often, and I don't think that that's talked about enough.
No, or why it costs so much.
I 100% agree with you. I don't see it as compassionate to mislead somebody about their future prospects. We don't do that with sports or music. We recognize that there's interests and talents at play. And if somebody doesn't have those skills, we don't encourage them to continue pursuing those endeavors. We tell them that their time and their talents could be better spent elsewhere. And so I think that same concept should apply to education. I think one of the reasons I've seen that I think people get a little uncomfortable with this is because so much of people's successes are tied with the degree that you have, where you went to college. And I think this is where we really need to seriously consider alternatives to higher education, whether that's trade school, apprenticeships, shorter degree programs. I think this would be one way to ease the pressure for everybody to go get a college degree.
Hey, thanks for spending some time with us, Neetu. Appreciate it again. Thanks for joining us once again. Neetu Arnold, research fellow at National Association of Scholars. Check out her article at Newsweek, her opinion piece, Biden needs to give up on student loan forgiveness. You're listening to News Talk 710 KURV.